Hey YouTube, Alex here from eBoardStuff. Today we're getting a little serious. We're going to be talking about the rear truck cracking issues that are happening on V2 and V2 Plus boosted boards. We're going to show you how to look for those cracks using an over-the-counter chemical kit that can be found at most welding supply stores. Stay tuned, we're going to be getting technical. What we're doing today is using a dye kit that can be purchased at local welding supply stores. We got ours from Airgas here locally, and it's the Radnor RK401S kit. It includes 2 cans of solvent for pre and post cleaning, a penetrating dye to get into the cracks should any be present, and then a developer to help those cracks show up. What we're going to need to do with the board is completely disassemble the rear truck by removing the wheels, pulleys, so on and so forth. We go into detail on how to do that in our first video where we're talking about installing our wheel and pulley kits. Later, we're going to show you an example of a pre-cracked bearing race so you can know what you're looking for. The tools that we're going to be using are a 2mm hex head, 3mm hex head, a 7mm wrench, a 7mm socket. This is quarter drive. You can use 3/8 drive if you want. And then our skate tool. The first thing that we're going to be doing is using the skate tool to remove the wheels. And we're going to completely disassemble half the board first, and you're just going to copy what we did on one side. Get the axle nut off, rotate the wheel while applying gentle pressure. That will come off. Move your spacer. The next thing we're going to be doing is taking off the motor cover using our 3mm. Those can be really tight. Just one. Go, off with the motor cover and the belt. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to remove the skid plate. Okay, the skid plate will come forward. Okay. Now most cracks form on the surface, this machine surfaced here, behind this motor plate to where the truck is. So to test that, we're going to have to remove this entire motor mounting plate, which involves removing these 5 bolts and screws. These bolts and screws require the use of a 2mm hex head and a 7mm socket or wrench. We're going to be using a 7mm socket. So we'll start with the top. What I'm finding here, since we haven't tested this one yet, some of these screws have some dirt in them from riding, so they might not be the easiest things to remove. There we go. All right, there's the first one. And we're just going to move on to the next one. Those are on there pretty tight. Something to take note of is on the front of the motor plate, the nuts have a flare on the bottom. The ones on the backside do not have a flare. So make note of that on reassembly. Okay, now everything's loose. Okay, now I'm going to end up removing all of these. You don't have to leave them in like I did. It's just a force of habit in order to stay organized. I like to take all of them out together and loosen them all together. All right, now this motor plate along with the motor will come forward. Okay. Now what this is exposing here is the machined surface where most of these boards are failing. And that is the interface between this backing plate and then the truck hanger right here. I don't see anything immediately obvious, but that's why we're going to be doing this test. So the first thing to do is going to be to thoroughly clean this part. And the way we're going to do this, we're going to take a lint-free rag. And we're going to take some of this cleaner that comes with our kit. And considering the size of the part, I wouldn't suggest spraying this directly onto the part. Spray your rag and just wipe it down. And that should be more than sufficient. Yeah, there we go. That's pretty clean. Okay, I actually see something that is a bit concerning. I believe I see a crack forming right up in here in the top. And now mind you, I have not taken this board apart. This is my first time doing this, but I see a crack that looks to be starting at about, if we're looking at this like a clock face, starting at about 10:30, moving past to about 12:30. Really interested to see what this test is gonna show. So the next step, now that we have this clean, is we're gonna be taking the penetrant, the can with the red cap. Instructions say to agitate it pretty well. We've already shaken it up quite a bit. And then this is, once again, a really small part. So we're gonna spray all the way around, and then we're gonna let this sit for half an hour. So actually, I'm gonna take our rag so I don't overspray onto the table too much, and just spray a pretty liberal amount. I think that's got it right there with 2 quick squirts. And we're gonna let this sit for about a half an hour. Now mind you, this stuff smells really strong. So make sure you're in a well-ventilated spot. We'll be back in half an hour to do the rest. So while we're waiting for that, we went ahead and broke another bearing to show you what it is that you're looking for. Here we've got a bearing that we heated up with an acetylene torch and then broke with an air chisel. These big lines show cracks that went all the way through. Most of this here is strain and surface cracking from where we heated it with the torch. But these are what we're looking for. These big dark lines show cracking in the material. This is what we're hopefully not gonna find on our rear trucks. Okay, so this has now been sitting for about a half an hour to let the dye soak into any cracks, if there's any there. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take our cleaner again, and we're just gonna wipe this down really quickly. We don't wanna clean too much of the dye out of any cracks if there are any cracks. So quick spray on the rag again, and then we're just gonna wipe it off the area that we think might be some cracking. Not really gonna worry too much about the higher part. Okay, so we've wiped it off. And then the final step is to take the green cap can, which is our developer, and I'm gonna lay a towel behind this to make sure I don't get overspray all over things. Okay, so we're gonna take our developer and hold it, what the directions say is about a foot away, and very lightly spray it. We don't wanna use too much, so getting the developer on there. And then we let the developer sit for about 10 minutes itself. And any cracks that may be on here will start to show up. Oh, and I can already see something showing up. This is a bit concerning right down in here. It's a very faint red line. I want to test it again. Let's test this one more time. We're going to test this one more time and see if we can replicate this and see if that may indeed be something we need to be worried about. Well, I can see a little bit of something this time. Not quite as obvious as the last time. Well, this leads me to believe that there's likely a problem with this truck, and I'll be contacting Boosted to see what we should do. So what did we learn today? Well, I believe we found something that could potentially be the beginnings of a crack. It wasn't definitive like we show in our example. So we did the test several times. Twice, we got results that are making us think it's a crack. So we're gonna reach out to Boosted Board and see what they have to say about it. But what we did show you today is that over-the-counter products available at most welding supply stores for about 50 bucks can potentially give you peace of mind, where just taking a guess might lead you to not wanting to ride your board. So like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think about the methods that we use down in the comment section, and we'll keep you updated with what we hear back from Boosted Board.